Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering human creativity. I'm Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me on Arts Engines. Today's guest is James Lee III, who serves as the composer in residence of the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Good to see you again.
Yes, it is absolutely great to see you. And I would be remiss if I did not also share with our audience, I have had the personal pleasure of being able to see so much of your work for a very long time, the impact you've had on the field, on composing, and with so many additional institutions and orchestras, et cetera, presenters, in addition to Baltimore Symphony Orchestra. And of course, going back to, I believe, over a decade ago, when you received one of the first commissions from the Sphinx Commissioning Consortium. Just a wonderful, wonderful history. And of course, go Blue, Michigan.
Right.
So with that, what I thought I'd do is just kind of start off, and for our audience, like, could you kind of share, like, do you feel there's kind of an overlying ethos or breadth or focus that you have as a composer, kind of a core point that you often either come from or an approach that you have with your compositions?
Mm-hmm. Usually, I try to find a balance between what's accessible and then something that would interest a performer, whether they are an orchestral member or a conductor. And I really want to kind of reach into the inner soul of the individual. I always feel like my music has like spiritual qualities too, especially talking to members in orchestras and audiences. It really seems to resonate with a lot of audiences. So I kind of want to always have that moment of this resonance where people really feel like they can understand the music and really appreciate it and want to hear it again. So that's something I always try to do in my art.
That is awesome, and especially clearly comes through with the response that audiences have to your music. Is there, and now you have this role as composer in residence of the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, one of our great creative partners here at Arts Engines, who helped us to co-curate this show. And is there a sense that you have then of balancing, right? Could maybe it be best if you kind of first kind of describe for those in our audience, what is a composer in residence, right? What does that actually mean? How does that kind of materialize for you?
Okay. Well, actually, for me, a composer in residence this time is actually, I'm actually in the Baltimore area. So sometimes composer in residence may spend a few weeks of a season with the orchestra, but I'm actually living in this area. So part of my role will be to compose various works for the orchestra, for the Baltimore Symphony. And then also I'll be mentoring young students. I'm very excited to do that. I'll be working with some students from the Baltimore School for the Arts. I think it's also the Peabody Preparatory Program and OrchKids. And they'll be writing short little works for a woodwind quartet and string quartet and maybe a couple of percussion instruments as well. So I'll be able to really talk with these students and help them to kind of elevate their ideas in terms of their creativity to bringing that out in this wonderful music that I expect they would compose. And then my own work, I'll be composing a concerto for orchestra, a cello concerto that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and then also a work for choir and orchestra that they'll perform in April. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So those concerts of composing, working with young students, and then speaking with people in the community as part of my position this coming season.
It is absolutely wonderful. And I love the breadth of that, and especially the incorporation of the educational component. And as you mentioned, there's such great institutions there, from OrchKids to Peabody Prep. I'm an alum of, and so many other just such great programs there at School for the Arts. And on the kind of composing front, when you look at that, so let's take the cello concerto. What I'm curious of is, for your process as you go about that, is there inspiration from the orchestra? Is there a sense you get of at all kind of their sound, or are you just kind of wondering as you think about structure and when you approach a composition, how do you go about that? And does the institution, in this case, the BSO, that you have a role with, do they play a role in that actual composition process?
Well, in terms of the cello concerto, that's something I've been wanting to compose for quite a long time. So I have an idea about specific members of the orchestra that would probably be more useful for me in terms of the concerto for orchestra that I'll write, and knowing players and what they like to do, their technical abilities. And of course, most orchestras are fabulous anyway, but so that's not going to be an issue. But then there's certain players that I can that I have relationships with that I can really explore certain timbres and certain types of gymnastics, so to speak, for the showy aspects of the concerto. But in the cello concerto, that is something that I found is very soulful, and I love the range of that. And the cellist will be Joshua Roman, and I've talked with him. We'll be doing some more discussions. The piece is actually called Renewed Minds, and it has to do with how society is so distracted by social media and their relationships, interpersonal relationships with human beings. So that's part of the inspiration of the piece and how I would go about that. So I always find, like, even traveling recently, I saw a few people, of whole families where they're not really engaging with each other in the airport. They're all on their social media, on their phones and all of that. So this piece will really explore that in terms of human relationships, and then the relationships with orchestral members that works well in a piece like this.
And going kind of a little deeper into that, and I love, of course, the focus for this work. How is there a way you view the role of a composer in society? Both when you think about your own compositions, when you think about educating young composers that you'll be doing as part of this role as the composer in residence. Do you view a role for the composer, especially kind of with the changing societal environment or challenges we have today?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Many times a composer can speak in a certain way through music that simple words may not be able to express. And many times we can draw attention to certain topics that in some areas may be almost uncomfortable to really deal with. But I always find that music can go past simple text many times and really speak to the soul, and to kind of be a catalyst for further conversations, for further growth and changes in areas. So I always feel the composer can really draw attention to a lot of that to help bring about positive change in certain areas.
Awesome, awesome. And as you kind of reflect back, is there a composition that you've created that stands out for you, that as you reflect, you're like, this just really, as I look at, kind of everything that I've brought into this world, this one kind of stands out? And if so, why?
Well, there are two. You mentioned the Sphinx Commission years ago. That work has been played almost every year somewhere since. That really is a work that it makes a really good impression. People seem to really connect with it. But I think more recently, my piano concerto that was premiered with Detroit Symphony, and then the BBC Philharmonic and Orlando Philharmonic. It's called Shades of Unbroken Dreams. And it's a work that really is a connection on various people of color and how we've had certain dreams that we wanted to pursue over time, but trying to move past certain obstacles. And it's that particular work combined with the I Have a Dream speech from Dr. Martin Luther King that served as inspiration, because the whole idea of moving forward and trying to achieve these hopes and dreams was never broken. There's always this continuum where we're always striving, whether it's people of color or women. And I think that work in three movements with my friend Alexandria, that has really been something I've been very proud of. It's kind of a monumental, epic work. It's sometimes you even forget it's a concerto because of the orchestral aspects of it. But then when the piano is performing the dialogue that happens between the two, I just found that is something that really brings people on their feet quickly. People are really excited about the work when they hear it. And it's in that dream world. I tried to connect the second and the third movement in such a way that it really elevates the mind into a whole nother kind of existence.
Oh, it is just incredible work that you do. Unfortunately, we are just about out of time, but I always like to ask of all of my guests, in this composing in the composition process, there's got to be some times I could only imagine when either you feel like you hit blocks or something's not happening. And just kind of curious, do you have any methods or solutions for when you feel like you hit challenges or something that you're having difficulty overcoming? Is there something that you do that helps you through those times?
Sure, I might take a break a little bit and try to think about a different composition I'm working on, or just do something differently for a little while, or maybe take a walk. And as a man of faith, I typically pray about it also to see if I can get some divine help and divine inspiration. And typically after a short period of time, that doesn't take too long for me, but after a short period of time, I start to have a little more inspiration. I kind of take a break from the composing aspect, and I might go to my piano and do a little improvisation and think about some ideas that I wanted to achieve. And then even if I don't take everything that I've been playing, I can take little little snippets of it, little elements, and incorporate that into the larger composition. And that happened in particular in this piano concerto I was just talking about.
Wow. Well, this work that you're doing is extraordinary. I hope many in our audience will be able to find their way to Baltimore. And of course, those who are there and absolutely be able to check out your work, which is extraordinary. James Lee III, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for everything you do, and thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you.